I think it's good to have one that you can go back to. And anytime you pick up the bow, you're either shooting really strong because you're coming off a day of rest, or you're shooting a little bit worn out. And kind of what Dave was talking about earlier is that when you get that full draw, I think a lot of where your neck pressure and everything is based on like how tight your muscles are. I think that affects how you can get into a bow. When you have those old ones that you're real familiar with, whether I guess a Fanatic original 2.0, 3.0, somewhere in there, you got a lot of arrows in it. And you know that when you pull it back, it's like, okay, my alignment's in there good. I'm not fighting it. It's not pulling me left, pulling me right. It's not dipping down. So having one that you can go back to when you might be kind of figuring out your shot. So I know you'd gone from a hinge to a button this year, right?
Yes. I went back to my button, um, which I'd always, just about always shot a button. I struggled, a little over a year ago. I struggled, or 2 years ago, I struggled in my execution, and I just decided I was going to pick up the hinge and shoot it for a year. And I'd really never done that. I'd shot it off and on, used it to train a little bit, but I'd always gone back to my button. And so I put in a year with the hinge with marginal success. Uh, I think it helped me get my form back in line. Uh, it had a lot of good aspects, even though I never did really score as well as I have with a button. Uh, so I went back to the button this year. Of course, I went to Indiana with a button that I got from you, Neil. I'd shot the old Scott Sigma back in 2019, 2020. I'd won uh, three or four national events back in that time, and I was shooting the Scott Sigma. And we were somewhere to shoot, and Neil and I were talking about something, and I said something about a Scott Sigma, and he says, "Well, heck, I've got one in my drawer at home, that's not being used." So I
It
ended up,
was the B3 Omega Mini that I was shooting with the spring on it, and I had one with the spring and one without. And he said that looks like the old Sigma I used to shoot. And I said, yeah, I got one of those.
yeah.
See,
So
it was over in Missouri. Robert Ingram was bow hunting with it this past fall, and it ain't got no action in the last 2 years. So
okay,
that thing's it's been around.
yeah. Well, I got that release in from Neil. Gosh, it wasn't but a few days before I went to Indiana, and that release just feels good to me. Um, so went to Indiana, and that's the release I shot up there, and